Welcome to the Bitcoin Business Podcast, where we talk to business owners about integrating Bitcoin into their businesses. Today, we're going to switch it up a little bit and talk to a new team member of Sovreign. We've talked to some team members in the past joining the team, and today we have John Balkam, who's joined us as a vice president, and will be focusing on sales, marketing, and helping bring businesses into Bitcoin. So, John, thank you for joining me today. Excited to have you a part of the team. And we're going to go through a host of topics today and we'll just kind of riff on them. But wanted to start by getting people to know you a little better, why you decided to join Sovreign, what your past was, and why you ultimately made the decision to come work in Bitcoin.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. I'm really excited to be here, excited to be joining the team. And yeah, I'm an author and entrepreneur from Washington, D.C. Surprisingly, I'm from D.C., but not in politics, government, or military. There are people like us here, believe it or not. Yeah, and actually, my past life, funny enough, was in sports and entertainment marketing. So I might seem like an interesting guy to be diving headfirst into Bitcoin. But I started a company about 6 years ago called Third Wind Group, sports entertainment marketing firm. Really, my idea or my catalyst for starting that company was I wrote a book in 2019 called Three Win Sponsorship. The next generation of sports entertainment marketing. So really, I had been passionate about this idea of social entrepreneurship going all the way back to my days at Georgetown. I took this class my senior year that basically talked about business should be a force for good, right? And kind of the light bulb went off, and I was like, yeah, of course it should be. Like, why isn't business a force for good? Like, isn't this the whole point, right? To serve other people, to help other people, to improve people's lives. So, Third Wind Group was one of my attempts at trying to bring a social entrepreneur's mindset into sports and entertainment. You know, the book was kind of introducing this concept of win-win-win style of business, style of partnership, style of marketing. And I was very, optimistic and very earnest in this idea that like win-win-win mentality can help you do well by doing good. Long story short, I got 3, 4 years into the business. By the way, we survived the pandemic. Like I started from zero. It was a total, chaotic, entrepreneurial journey. Anyway, I get to about 2022. We've lived through the pandemic. We've survived. We've started to build up our client base at TWG. And I'm a pretty active Twitter user at this time. And for better or worse, my feet kept on getting hammered with people talking about Bitcoin, people talking about Saifedean Amis's book, The Bitcoin Standard. I had been familiar with cryptocurrency, crypto assets. I'd actually read a book on crypto assets in 2017, but I didn't really grasp the profundity of Bitcoin. So in 2022, about April 2022, I finally decided to get Saifedean's book. I read the Bitcoin Standard, and you know, basically life changed after that.
Many such
So
cases.
I mean, look, Safe really kind of lays it out very clearly for us all there. So anyway, the long story short is I realized the profound nature of this technology uh, from a business perspective, from an economics perspective, from a morality perspective, from an ethics perspective. And then I realized, I need to adopt this personally. I need to adopt Bitcoin personally, and I need to adopt Bitcoin for my business as an edge, right? And so that's what happened throughout 2022. Of course, there was that crazy bear market at the end of 2022, but myself, our small business, we started stacking Bitcoin very, humbly stacking small amounts of Bitcoin throughout 2022, all the way down from 44K to 16K. And then we've been stacking all the way back up from there, slowly but surely. But really, what happened for me is I just became so obsessed with Bitcoin. I started reading everything I could, every book, reading every article, listening to every podcast. I just became so obsessed that I kind of realized this is what I want to devote my more of my time to. I want to devote almost all of my professional time, if not all of my professional life, going forward to helping people understand Bitcoin, helping people benefit from Bitcoin. And really, I guess the why and like why I'm here at Sovereign is that I feel like Bitcoin is an opportunity for us to build just a better world, a better economy, a more fair, a more just world. And this, again, you can kind of sense that I have some, I guess optimistic or maybe even, naivete around Bitcoin of like how much it could change the world. But I think that's kind of my role as a young entrepreneur in this world is to, we have so many dark things going on in the world. I think we need to have a better vision for the future to keep going and to have something to build towards. So it's a little bit of an intro and then, we can dive in from there.
No, that's awesome, and I love the fact that you were a business owner. You were putting Bitcoin on your balance sheet. You were using it to help support your business, and maybe we can talk about that a little too, since that is kind of the point of this podcast, is to talk to business owners about that. But you realized, hey, maybe this isn't my passion, or maybe I really do like this, but I feel like I need to be doing something in Bitcoin because that's where I want to focus my time, energy, and effort. And maybe I can go out and don't let me put words in your mouth, but maybe I can go out, help business owners get to the point I was at so they can start to realize the benefits of adding Bitcoin to the balance sheet. But maybe some of these business owners are really passionate about what they're doing and they want to keep doing it. And a lot of them are just simply facing the threat of bankruptcy, elimination, liquidation, whatever you want to call it, at because of inflation, because of the inability to keep up with the debasement, to have high enough margins to offset that debasement. So maybe if you want to talk a little bit about how you were using it at your business, why it was beneficial, and then also what was your mindset in terms of I just want to go into Bitcoin full time. I want to help other businesses adopt Bitcoin full time.
Sure. So I really went through a journey in 2022. I went through a journey of, um, I guess you could almost call it awakening to a certain extent, where I realized that no matter how hard I worked in my business, the inflation rate is working harder than I can ever work, right? And it's working against me. So I need to find something to counteract the inflation. And, growing up, I mean, we never learned about in-depth mechanics of money. Right? I went to, really nice private schools here in the DC area, right? And we never learned about like truly how money works. So learning how money works really and how the system really works was such an eye opener that I realized, okay, I'm trying to build this new venture. It's only a few years old. Its chances of survival are already really low. But because of the amount of money printing, the severe inflation from 2020 through 2022, I realized that I had no choice but to do something about this, right? We weren't even making that much money as a young business as it is, but I realized that we would just have to keep on working harder to outpace inflation. We'd have to keep growing faster. Likely, we'd have to take on debt, right, in order to grow fast enough to outpace inflation. And I guess I just didn't want to be beholden to creditors and investors. The idea for me of going into business was to have more autonomy and freedom and the ability to build the business to my design and to my, ideas and vision. I didn't want to give up that autonomy through debt and through high amounts of venture capital funding. So really, I found Bitcoin at the perfect time. I found Bitcoin where I could start slowly but surely accumulating it, putting it on our balance sheet, making it at our store value and our long-term savings plan. Very simply. We didn't really accept it for as payment, but we just started there. We just started to take anytime that we would bring money in, we would take a small sliver of what we earn and we would DCA into Bitcoin. And so that was how we got started. And then how do we transition to where I am now, where I've joined Sovreign? Well, again, I just became so obsessed with the different layers of Bitcoin, the different, you know, I felt like this is almost even a higher calling than my calling to start TWG, right? Like I realized the moral elements and the kind of ethical elements of, you know, our current monetary system, and then the monetary system we hope to build through Bitcoin. And I was just inspired to say, you know what, like this is really important. Like we can really help people. It's not even just about wealth. It's about freedom. It's about autonomy. It's about uh, not exploiting other people. I think we can get into this probably in a little bit, but reading John Perkins' book, you know, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, on top of all the other books I had been reading about economics and money and history, it just opened my eyes, and I just realized, like, wow, we inherited this death economy, as Perkins talks about. It is eating itself alive, and it is, in my mind, we're kind of seeing what I would what I would say the decline or the death of the death economy right now. We're living through it. And in my estimation, Bitcoin is the tool or the technology that can help us unlock and build a life economy. So really, what's my why for joining Sovreign is I want to make an attempt at building a life economy while I'm still here on this planet. I want to help. I want to contribute towards that. It's a profound mission from my perspective, and it's why I'm kind of just going all in and saying let's build this thing. Sovereign can help. We can contribute. Maybe we won't contribute, you know, at the level of like a Michael Saylor in strategy, but we can contribute in some small way, and those contributions can help build a better world for us and for our loved ones and for the generations after us.
And you touched on such an important point there that you went into business because you had the idea of I want more autonomy, I want to be in control, which is the mindset of a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners. That's what they did. Some of them 10, 20, 30 years ago. And now they're getting caught in this situation where they're finding themselves having to take on debt, having to go raise outside capital, and effectively giving up not only legal control, but sometimes operational control of their business because they simply don't understand what is happening to them. And they are watching all of their autonomy being taken away from them, and they don't even know it's happening. And it's such a soul crushing thing. What you're talking about is it's almost like a psychological, when you were talking about John Perkins and Confessions of an Economic Hitman, the basic premise for those that haven't read the book or listened to John talk is that the fiat monetary system is basically a debt enslavement system, and there's been many people in the Bitcoin space that have talked about this. Safedine, who we mentioned earlier, has a great book called The Fiat Standard that walks through all of this. And I think it's on the Bitcoin standard. It might be on the Fiat standard. I think it's the Bitcoin standard where it says the decentralized alternative to debt slavery. And ultimately, that's the goal: is the people running the central banks have figured out that we can't really put people physically in shackles anymore. That doesn't look so good, but we can put you in financial shackles, and the psychological destruction that has on a human being. That's why you're out in society and people are, oh, we're losing it, and everyone's fighting at the airport, and no one has any respect for anyone, and there's graffiti everywhere, and people just throw their trash on the train car, and no one has any respect for anything. And it's all because these people are psychological debt slaves. Well, they're physical debt slaves, and it's psychologically destroying them to a point where they have no appreciation for the world around them. They don't feel like they're getting anything out of life. They're not adding any value. And you talked about it earlier, the death economy. There's both the physical death through wars and destruction, and people eating like crap and not taking care of themselves and being completely exhausted, and having heart attacks at way earlier than they should have, due to overworking and stress and all sorts of other nefarious items as well that we won't get into. Um, but that is that is the breakdown in society that you're seeing is this psychological accepting of defeat. Basically, it was always, oh, why did the slaves never revolt? Why they, there were hundreds of them and two people with guns. Clearly they could have done something. And it was like they were they were told they were nothing. They were told they weren't able to do anything. And yes, society did beat them down, but that's exactly what's going on now. Society is beating you down. You are forced to want to consume, and you are psychologically being destroyed and put into debt to basically fuel this insane idea of fiat money.
Yeah, I mean, this idea of the death economy from John Perkins is just so profound, and I want to talk about the four pillars of the death economy that he outlines in the book. The first being fear, right? Fear, debt, anxiety over insufficiency, and divide and conquer. And really, when you just look at your life experience, I'm a millennial, and one of my, when I was 10, 11 years old, we had the 9/11 attacks. In 2008, when I was in high school, we had the global financial crisis. In 2020, when I'm in my mid 20s, right, in my early 20s, we have COVID-19. And you just can't help but read this book by Perkins, and you see the patterns and see and reflect on your life experiences, and you realize this is why things have been so dark during my lifetime. It's because we inherited this death economy, right? That is constantly feeding you news to make you feel afraid. Is telling you if you don't take on debt, you won't get what you want. You won't be able to have a life, really, right?
Yep.
Anxiety over insufficiency, right? While Perkins was talking about this on the nation state level, and his job was essentially chief economist for this large consulting firm. While his job was to go and apply these principles and apply pressure to presidents and prime ministers, right? The death economy is applying these pillars and these principles to each individual and each family as well. So we're feeling the anxiety over insufficiency, right? We're feeling that division that has been manufactured, right, by what Perkins calls the corporatocracy. So the corporatocracy being governments, large international banks, and large international corporations, right? And people might listen to this conversation and just say, John, like, what radicalized you? What radicalized you? You're speaking too much, truth. And what I would say to them is, what is so comfortable about the current reality, right? Me speaking the truth about what's going on and what we can all see going on. How is that more uncomfortable than us witnessing these events go on in front of our eyes, right? Seeing everyone, being riled up with fear, everyone being in debt, up to their eyeballs or even barely treading water in debt, right? This anxiety that we're not going to make ends meet every month. And then this really brutal breakdown in the social fabric where it's their fault. It's their fault. We can never pinpoint the issue. Well, I think Perkins here has pinpointed the issue. Bitcoiners, I think, have pinpointed the issue, and it starts and ends with the money. This ability for central banks to be able to print money at will, right, enables this entire death economy to perpetuate itself. And listen, to be fair to our parents as well, they inherited this as well. Our parents actually didn't really have the tools of the internet and didn't have the tools of like Bitcoin to combat this thing. But I think the reason I'm so passionate and I want to get the word out about this is that we now have tools to combat the death economy and build a life economy. So I don't know if Perkins laid out principles of a life economy or not, but what I would propose is that to combat the death economy, to build a life economy, we need courage, we need sound money, right? We need security through abundance, and we need to connect and collaborate. And we need to have four pillars to combat the four pillars of the death economy. And to me, Bitcoin is one of them, right? I think it is obviously the most sound money we have ever had at our disposal. But I think there's these other three elements and courage. Like, I think part of the thing that might be holding people back from Bitcoin is just like not being able to tap into that courage to be different, to break away from the crowd, to break away from convention and do something a little bit different. And all I'm saying here is that there are lots of people who have taken the steps in front of you. It just takes one step to realize like you don't have to be afraid all the time. You don't have to be anxious all the time. You don't have to be in debt to live a good life. We now have a tool in Bitcoin that can give us that courage to fight back against this death economy.
And that's been a huge part for me in talking to businesses and business owners and even people in my former world. For those that don't know, I spent about 2 decades in the traditional finance world handling distressed loans for a financial company. And when I would bring up Bitcoin to people at lunches or networking events, it it was treated as so on the fringes, so out of the norm that it was almost taboo. Like, oh, I couldn't do that. Not me as a business owner. I mean, yeah, okay, maybe you bought some and a while ago, and great, that's done well for you and your family, and you got lucky. But I can't incorporate that into my business because it's just so crazy. And part of what we're trying to do at Sovereign is that is part of what's fueling this death economy that you're talking about is this lack of courage to go do something different, just to fall in line, to do the status quo, to to run a business. It's funny you mentioned the autonomy and the ability to run a business and have some personal freedom and ability to control your own destiny. Yet at the same time, you're using, as a business owner, if you haven't adopted Bitcoin, you're using the same playbook that every other single business owner is, and that is holding them back. That is limiting their ability to, it not necessarily even grow. Growth may be one option, distributions to members to be able to go do other things in your personal life may be another option. You're just limiting your optionality because you feel like you have to be in the same box that everyone else is. And it's there was a hilarious South Park episode, conforming to not conform. And it seems like that is a mentality in business owners that we need to get out there, dispel them of, and then let's follow back up in 4 or 5 years and just look at how much of a better position you're in. I mean, I don't know about you, but to me, we're almost 5 years past when they announced the lockdowns are coming, and to me, it feels like that was like yesterday. I mean, I
Mm.
can't even. And so, 5 years of you starting your Bitcoin savings plan as a business, and 5 years will be here before you know it, and you'll be in such a better financial position at that point in time. You will have so much more autonomy. You will have so much more freedom. The things you set out to do will all of a sudden become a reality and available to you. But it does start with that courage and being able to say, "Well, why do I have to do what everyone else is doing?" And there's a whole separate idea of public education and how they basically instill in all of us that there is a quote unquote right way to do things. It's, of course, what the state has prescribed as the right way to do things, not, morality you learn from your family or your parents or being civil to your neighbor. It's here's how you become a good soldier or good worker to pay taxes and be a debt slave. And that has permeated so much through society. It's so insidious and awful. And really, it's going to take the reversal of that mindset and the way people view the world, that conformity is actually terrible, and you are going along with the herd and going along with the crowd is actually not wisdom. It's not, these are, thousands of years of great wisdom that's been passed down. This is 150 years of brainwashing from state institutionalized schooling programs that has effectively been foisted onto society. And we've been lied to that this is, 10,000-year-old wisdom of the way things should be organized. And so, what you were talking about earlier in terms of I just found myself needing to go do this. I don't, if you haven't felt that, if you haven't kind of gone down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and seen that happen, it's almost impossible to explain to people why you're leaving some great setup you had before to go do this. But when you get into, we're actually in like a spiritual and psychological battle with society, with the centralized structures that are running things. They do not have our best interest in mind. They are simply out for their own interests, and maybe sometimes there is some ancillary benefit that accretes to society, but I would say 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. And it's actually furthering the destruction of society. So maybe talk a little bit about how how you felt that was such a mission that you needed to get out and go do.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I'm a Christian, and I was taught the Ten Commandments as a little kid. All right, I don't want to, be a, focus on the spiritual too much because some people might be uncomfortable. But look, we're taught that to steal and to kill is a mortal sin, right? And I was taught that as a little kid, and I go through life. I'm raised in a Catholic family. We don't steal, we don't kill. Right? And if you fundamentally believe that that's true, okay, you have to take a good hard look at the fiat money system because it is based on theft and violence. And it is a very, very difficult pill to swallow when you realize that that's what this is. And I think it's very insidious because the fiat monetary system has so much power that they can propagandize people into saying that the theft and the violence is necessary for, or else society will fall apart. But really, what it is I realized in studying Bitcoin that I was just in using their money, I was complicit in the theft and the violence, right? That was going on that primarily is being perpetuated by governments, right? But is funded by central banks, is funded by these large military industrial complex companies. So in many ways, I mentioned I went through an awakening. It was extremely painful to come to this conclusion, right? It was almost like you kind of realize, oh, my entire life is a lie up to this point, or at least I let myself be lied to and I accepted the lies. And so that's why 2022 is an extremely difficult, while it was also very enlightening to study Bitcoin and to realize that we have an ethical money that is now competing against the unethical, you know, money that's propped up by theft and violence. um, I kind of realized, wow, like I'm alive at a time where we may be able to actually change this paradigm, right? We may be able to change this paradigm and build a life economy, right, where everyone is using money that can't be stolen and it can't be printed. So that's when we're talking about fiat money is based on theft. We're talking about the ability of fiat banks to be able to issue new units of our currency from thin air with no no work. There's no work associated with clicking a few buttons in a database and adding new units into the system.
Strains the
That
faith.
may be yeah, exactly. Maybe carpal tunnel is the side effect of that. But once you realize that that is true and that debt is the mechanism by which we increase the money supply. When we increase the money supply, we experience inflation. When we experience inflation, essentially what that means is that it is harder for us to survive, right? Actually, I think a helpful framework for me when I realized that money is really just a survival token, right? We use money to buy housing, food, water, clothing. All right. So tell me this. Would you rather have a money that's making it more expensive to buy your life essentials or less expensive over time to buy your life essentials? Right. When you put it that way, you realize that inflation is making it harder for everyone, save for the very few who can then take, low, basically, inflation is only good if you have access to lots and lots and lots of low interest debt that you can then buy valuable, scarce assets with. If you don't have access to lots and lots of debt at very low interest rates, you just basically feel the effects of inflation. You don't get the upside of assets appreciating and your wealth going up. So what we're getting at here is that inflation is one of the core tenets of making it harder for you and your loved ones to survive. So what we're saying with Bitcoin is this is a money, a survival token, right? That its supply is going to be capped at 21 million. Okay, we all know that. Therefore, right, if you just hold it, use it as your survival token, okay, your housing, your food, your water, your clothing, it's going to be easier for you to get what you need over time, right? And all we're saying is Bitcoiners, maybe we seem radical, okay? But what I would say is we think that it should be easier for people to survive over time than not. We think that there should be a money that people can hold. They don't need to invest it. They don't need to become a professional, financial wizard. All they need to do is hold it and their lives get easier over time. Of course, you still have to be virtuous, right? You have to, you have to earn more than you spend, right? And you need to be able to save over long periods of time. But we can get into this a little bit more, but I think that virtuous people who want to live good lives find it extremely difficult to do that under a fiat monetary system, right? And this is why I think the world is upside down, where the most virtuous people, right, who are hardworking, who are honest, who are just trying to be good people and live a good life, they're finding it impossible to, right? They're down at the bottom, they're finding it impossible to survive. And the people who are the most narcissistic, the most aggressive, the most devious, the most violent, they're at the top of society, right? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And this is why I'm basically going to put my, I'm going to put my neck on the line to fight for this, right? I feel like this is something that I need to do. Otherwise, I hopefully have another 50 years to live. I can't imagine the hellscape that we're going to be living in if we don't stand up to this system now. So I'm like, I'm like jumping out of my skin thinking about how if this continues, if we don't, stand up to the death economy, like what is the world going to look like? Well, it's not looking good, Brandon, and we got to do something about it.
I couldn't agree with you more. Pretty much everyone at Sovreign has left some well-paying gig, some comfortable job, because they're all being called to this mission. And for whatever reason that is, we have all sorts of different personalities and backgrounds. You mentioned you're a person of faith. I am as well, raised in a Christian household. Um, uh, and believe absolutely that we answer to a higher power, that we are in a spiritual battle, um, even if you're not religious or faith based or whatever you want to call it, whatever term is acceptable these days. um, there's a battle of good and evil going on out there. I mean, you can just look around, and I love that you mentioned the Ten Commandments, because to me that is like, I think if you just had a society that functioned around the Ten Commandments, if that was it, those were the only laws, the Ten Commandments. We didn't have tax laws and jaywalking laws and a parking ticket. It's all so ridiculous and also insane. It's all to fund this giant corporate bureaucracy that is called government. And if you honestly just had a court system, a law enforcement system, and a civil training, aka school, that just taught the Ten Commandments, I just I think we'd be so much we'd have such a better society. It's not even worth thinking about. But um, as someone, I certainly on my journey out of my previous job to this one, absolutely felt called. I prayed a lot about it. Prayed with my wife a lot about it. Talked with my wife, my family about it a lot, and to me, it was crystal clear that God was calling me to this, and I can't but God was basically like, "Hey, man, give up your super cushy job and with all sorts of benefits and a way easier workload than you're going to have. You come do this because I want you to do this." I mean, that was the message I got, and I'm sure some people are rolling their eyes now. That's fine. I don't care. I experienced it. I lived it. I know it's the case, and I can't help but feel that there is a moral and spiritual connection between what we're trying to do at Sovereign, Bitcoin, and the removal of this fiat system that is just so pernicious, is just so evil, and my mind, I'm kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but my mind just gets blown by how incredible Bitcoin is. Like the once you've gone down the rabbit hole and understand the knock-on effects and the potential for society when you really have people's time, energy, and value not being stolen from them by making money out of thin air, the possibilities and the results for reshaping society into a just and moral society. Is it a utopia? No, we're never going to have utopia. But man is evil. There is this spiritual battle. There is a battle of good and evil always going on, and there will be evil out there. It's just how do we move the majority of society into closer towards good and farther from evil, and that really is what all of us who have kind of left what we're doing believe in. I mean, at the end of the day, I haven't. It's funny. I haven't talked to any of the people that have come on board as Sovereign, our founder. No one is concerned about the money. No one is concerned about, hey, what's my stake? What's this look like? Sure, there's some, standard negotiation, but everyone here is just like, let's just get the thing signed up. Uh, I I, I want to get out and start helping businesses. I want to start getting people on the path to sovereign uh, sovereignty as an individual, as a business owner, via having control of your finances and having control of your money and taking that back from people that are effectively putting you in a position where you no longer have that sovereignty. And it's just so cool to be around a bunch of people who basically have the same mission. So you can say all you want, there is no you know spirituality, there is no higher power, that's fine. But if you look around and don't think we're in a battle of good versus evil, taking a look at the world, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, and you know what, Brandon? I think what happened for me was that I just the warrior gene or the spiritual warrior gene in me unlocked over the last 3 4 years as I've been going on this journey.
Same here, man.
Um,
Same here.
I realized that I have to take a stand, here. And maybe I'm going to be the only one in my family to take a stand. Maybe I'm going to be the only one of my friends to take a stand in this way. But I just felt like this, I have to do this. I need to find other people who I can partner with to do this. Um, and really, like, what's our vision? All right. What's the vision for Bitcoiners? What's the vision for people like us in Sovereign? The vision is freedom, abundance, right? A better world, right? A better world that isn't being dragged down by this death economy and by this corporatocracy to bring back John Perkins term, right? I think I shared this tweet with you that I put out a couple days ago, which is imagine a world where, you know, millions, hundreds of millions, or billions of individuals, families, small businesses all over the country, all over the world. They're holding Bitcoin in self custody. They're self sovereign. All right. I don't even need to tell you like the knock on effects of that, but just start with this idea that people can hold their own survival tokens, their own money. They don't need to trust a corporate bank. Okay. They're able to trade peer to peer using this system, using this technology without asking permission from government, without asking for permission from a corporate bank, who, by the way, your corporate bank, they don't care about you and your family. All
No.
right. They care about profiting off of your account.
Yes. I lived that
Okay.
for 20 years. I can confirm that's accurate.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to the, leaving the dark side and coming to the light. But I mean, just this is the vision. Okay. We want to live in freedom and abundance. Bitcoin is just a tool for us to build that world. Okay. People who think we're in a cult. Okay. Let's talk about how fiat money is a cult, right? And
Yeah.
who the high priest like Jamie Dimon of the fiat cult,
Jerome
they
Powell.
don't have your
Yeah,
Jerome Powell.
we gather once every 6 weeks or whatever it is to hear what the high priest is going to shout from the mountaintops as the new price of
And
money. I mean, there's no bigger cult in the world than that. An entire financialized global system that it relies on some high priest coming out and telling you how much your money's going to cost. That is a cult.
and then and I refuse to genuflect in front of Jay Powell's altar or Jamie Dimon's altar, because I know that they're wrong. They're on the wrong side. I'm sorry. All right. If you believe that theft is wrong and violence is wrong, right, that you will not use fiat money. You will, I mean, obviously, a lot of us, we can't, literally can't live without using somewhat of it. But I'm talking about your primary money. Your primary money. We all now are faced with a choice, going forward. Is my primary money going to be Bitcoin, which is an ethical, moral, sound money, or fiat money, which is unethical, which is being inflated, basically to the point of destruction, and is a tool that the death economy uses to fund wars like the war in Ukraine, wars like the war between Israel and Gaza, you know, that used to fund domestic disputes and the stuff that's going on in LA right now. So we're literally witnessing the world on fire, and we don't think that there's anything wrong with the system that perpetuates this whole thing. Right?
That's
The world's on fire in LA as we speak. The world's on fire in Ukraine and in Russia. The world's on fire in the Middle East and Gaza and in other places that we probably don't even know about. And yet we don't think that there's anything wrong with the current system.
that's
I reject that idea completely.
That's one of my favorite memes is it uh but if we don't pay taxes, won't the warlords take over? And then it's just a picture of every president since like 1990. And it's the warlords are here. The warlord, I mean, to explain that to people is it's they can't see it. They don't understand. We're just constantly in war. There is just a war everywhere. The U.S. is funding 90% of it. It's just war, 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 nonstop, nonstop, nonstop. Assassinations, coups, special operations. It's just nonstop war, and it's and you know I don't need to go into the anti-war train people or train of thought. People have done much better job of this topic and have much more profound thoughts than I do. But to not acknowledge that the world is just constantly at war, constantly fighting, and it's all with this idea that if we didn't have war, there would be a bigger war or something. Like when you kind of step back and look at it and just go, is that really true? Like, is it possible that if we weren't constantly at odds with Russia, if we weren't constantly funding Israel, that maybe we would have a little more peace and different. Is that possible? Like, is that option on the table? And they do such a good job of this unfalsifiable premise. It's like, well, if we didn't if we didn't have Ukraine, well, if we didn't have the coup in Ukraine in 2014, it would have been even worse. And you can't really say, well, that's not true, because you can't prove it. You also can't say it's true. So then you just get in this back and forth of just worthless debate of hypothetical situations. And it's like, well, we've never actually tried just like not bombing people. Literally since World War II, we have never stopped fighting a war somewhere, backing a regime, doing a coup. We've never stopped. It's like we don't even know what the possibilities are. And so to sit there and deny the reality that war is all around us anyways, I mean, give me a break. So
So what we're proposing and what we feel like we need to do is hit this corporatocracy, this death economy machine where it hurts, which is the money, right? We A lot of what goes on in this unholy alliance between government, large international banks, large international corporations, they're able to pull all of this off because of the money printer, right? It takes longer conversations to be able to expound on that, but just hear me out for right now. Why are Bitcoiners so passionate about this movement? We're passionate about this movement because we can opt out of their death economy money, and we can hold it in self custody without having to rely on Bank of America, JP Morgan, Citi, you name it, all right, who are complicit in this unholy alliance, right, and who ultimately profit from these wars. Right? It's not just the military industrial complex, it's also large financial institutions like BlackRock, who are the largest shareholders in the military industrial complex companies. So, you just kind of follow the money and you ask who benefits and you figure it out, right? So we start with, you got to hit in warfare, you got to hit them where it hurts, or hit them in their center of gravity. The center of gravity is the money printer, is the central bank, is this ability to issue debt out of thin air. And Bitcoiners are saying, no, no, no. You can do that, all right? You can do that, but you ain't going to affect me. As a matter of fact, you're going to make me comparatively wealthier than everybody else because you keep inflating the money supply to fund your wars. And by the way, like Bitcoiners aren't going to fire a single shot. Right? We aren't going to be out protesting in the streets. Maybe some will get involved in the political process, but this is a silent, peaceful movement. All right, but it is a war in my estimation. It's a spiritual and psychological war, and we have Bitcoin. And we have the stronger money, the more ethical money, the money that has already changed millions of lives around the country and around the world. Eventually, I just think that people are going to wake up and realize, oh, I don't actually have to be a part of this death economy anymore.
and
And just start opting out, pulling their economic energy out of that system. That's the number one thing I want people to take away from this, is that you don't necessarily have to be super powerful, already have a bunch of wealth, have political connections. You don't have to be some big hero who goes and faces these people head on. Slowly but surely, what I think we all can do, though, is pull our economic energy away from these folks, pull our economic energy out of the death economy and start placing it into the life economy, because that's the only thing that these people pay attention to and listen to.
it's also such a massive. I forget who coined the term. It might have been safe. Talking a lot about safe here, but uh, it's a cheat code to life. You can just store your savings in Bitcoin and then you don't have to worry about. I can't tell you how much my personal stress level has just decreased. It's like I don't care who's elected. I don't, like whatever. If I just have to get up and leave and go somewhere to a jurisdiction that likes me better, I'll just go do that. It's not a it's not a panacea in that life won't be hard and you won't have difficult things going on, and financially it may still be tough even using a better money, but it really is just this ability to be completely if- to quote Kamala Harris, you could become unburdened by what has been, or whatever she said.
Who
You
said we aren't bipartisan and
let the,
giving credence to both
yeah,
sides here?
let the record show this is the only Bitcoin podcast to quote Kamala Harris in a positive way. So, um, in all seriousness, though, you do unburden yourself from just everything going on in life. You don't have to watch the news anymore. You don't have to watch the stock market every single day. You don't have to figure out what the latest thing going on in Hollywood. None of this stuff matters. It's you're able to just focus on what you want to do in your life, because you've put the better money aside, and you've lowered your time preference, and you will then reap the benefits down the line. It's just like the ketogenic diet or the carnivore diet, or just getting sugars and carbohydrates to a minimal amount in your diet, eating whole foods, eating stuff without seed oils, eating stuff without chemicals that's been processed, making your own meals. All these things, when you start doing them, you just experience such an incredible benefit and improvement in your life that it's like you just got to take that step, and then you're never going back. You're never going back. And it is so hard to get people to take that first step for all the reasons we've talked about earlier on the podcast, but that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're here to do, is to get you to take that first step, to start realizing the benefits in your own life, to find those things and go, my, I walked away from a very nice salary, all sorts of perks, and blah blah blah, and I'm working 3 times as hard as I was at that job, and yet my stress level is down like 500%, just because I don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore. I'm wearing my, no 401k Bitcoin DCA shirt here. I'm just all in Bitcoin. Everything. I don't have a 401k I have to worry about anymore. That's in Bitcoin. I don't have stock market stuff I got to track every day. That's in Bitcoin. That entire part of my life has been simplified. I don't have to worry about, you know, the next paycheck coming in, or whatever. Like, it's all just been simplified. It's all just been put into one area. I have my savings. I have my appreciating savings, which we have the benefit of taking advantage of now. It won't always be that way, but you're just able to make things so simple. And then the knock-on effects are all the stuff we've talked about. It's the simplicity and not having to worry about all of these things, not constantly be fretting about all of this stuff that society is throwing at you. And that's when you're able to step back and go, okay, what do I actually value? What is important to me? And that is where the virtue comes from. That's where, oh, I don't have to be frantically doing everything right now. And, this is just sort of a more in-depth peeling apart of low time preference versus high time preference. That once you get to that low time preference point in your life, you do become more virtuous. You do care more about your family. A lot of your bad habits go away. You start looking out and going, oh man, I really want to make sure at age 65 I'm, not completely destroyed as physically, spiritually, emotionally, and I'm there for my family. I'm there for whoever else in my life that I find important. And you really reframe everything, and that is how the spiritual good side of this battle is going to win, is giving people the ability to step back, reclaim their time, and look at the things that are important to them, instead of constantly being on the hamster wheel of going to your next thing, reading the next post, staring at the next advertisement, on and on and on and on, and constantly worrying about what's going on in your life, what's going on in the world, who's controlling what, and how are they going to affect me. So,
Yeah, I mean, beautiful testimony, Brandon. I will just say I'm right there with you, and my life changed for the better as well since I've gone down this path. The ability to simplify things, the ability to simplify your economics and your finances. Like another framework that's helped me to understand the world and what's going on is that everyone is economizing all the time, right? And by economizing, I mean taking actions that they believe will help them survive and thrive, right? Everybody, I am, you are, everyone around us, we're all economizing. We're all trying to survive first and then ideally, hopefully thrive if we can. And we're taking actions daily towards that end. It's really amazing when you just make one change in your economic strategy and you start using Bitcoin as money instead of fiat money as money. It is amazing how much easier your survival slash thrive strategy gets because you realize, oh, I don't need to become an expert in the stock market. I don't need to, you know, like you said, I don't need to be on top of the news every single day. I don't need to do all these things. I can simplify my life and focus on health, savings, and then my loved ones. Everything else is noise. Everything else is noise. I don't have control over all of this, but I do have control over this. And so, man, all I can say is with Sovreign and with this team, what I want is to help people to see this path, take advantage of it, simplify their lives, simplify their economic strategies, and see what happens. I mean, look, like you said, this isn't going to be a perfect world no matter what, right? We're flawed human beings. We all have, different things that we regret doing or saying, whatever. But do we have to live in the hellscape that, the death economy has brought on us? I don't think so. I don't think we can. I think Bitcoin is a gift for those of us who wish to fight for a better world. It is a gift that we can now use to build this better world, right? In Christianity, they talk about building the kingdom of heaven on earth, right? Damn it, we should try. We should try to aim towards that, even if we never make it. Like we should try to aim towards that. Like, and we got to stand up to the theft, the violence, the murder, and the deceit that is just rampant among the highest levels of power in this world. And it's like, is this risky for you and me? Sure, it's risky for us, probably, but like in my analysis, the bigger risk is to do nothing and let the death economy run rampant.
right.
So,
What else am I going to do? I mean, I could, um, to quote the great Jerry Garcia, I'd rather be a free man in a grave I'd rather be a free man in my grave than a puppet on my, or what is, oh man, now I don't even have to, now I'm just butchering the quote. It's I'd rather be a free man in my grave than a puppet or a slave. That's what it is. I'd rather be a free man in my grave than a puppet or a slave. And yeah, so great. Okay, I don't go do this. I don't follow this calling that I clearly believe was in my life. And this may not be a calling for everyone. I mean, this may not be something you want to go do, or it's not right, or you're going to be used somewhere else in the world. Everyone has their role and position that they're going to be in to add value, to help those around them, to affect those around them. But at the same time, if I didn't go do this, I mean, what am I just going to say that, hey, I just let it cush? My goal in life was to be as comfortable as possible for 80 years, Lord willing, 70 years, whatever the number is. Is that really something to strive for? Is that something I can look back on and wow, I really took life and faced the least resistance possible. Boy, wasn't that wonderful. To me, that's just so unfulfilling and there's no point. And I've said it before on this podcast, and I'll say it again, that as we're out with these companies, business owners, I don't want you to thank me when we're done in 2025. I want you to thank me in 2030 and in 2035 and just say, wow, you completely changed the way my business functions. You completely, not only did you change the balance sheet, not only did you change the capital preservation, not only did you change our operations and our income statement, but we have a completely different outlook. People are happy to come into work. We are um, we are aligned in our mission. People believe in the long-term plan of this business, and ultimately the seeds we're planting today with Sovereign, that's the fruit, that's the tree that I want to see growing and bearing fruit in 5, 10, 15 years down the line. And that's what gives me so much passion about doing this is I know if we can get to these business owners, reshape their starting with getting them set up with Bitcoin, reshaping their savings tool, reshaping their savings tool, I know that we are going to be in a position 5, 10 years from now where the business owner is going to come back and go, that wasn't just a financial change. It was a complete psychological and culture change as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's beautifully said, Brandon. And maybe we can wrap up with this, which is, as I was going through this process of learning Bitcoin and really having a difficult time in 2022, just, grasping all this and grasping the truth of the system that we live in. I remember going to mass with my parents one weekend. I can't remember the gospel specifically, but the quote that I pulled out was, you were not made for comfort, you were made for greatness. And I think that that is so true that, we're not necessarily put on earth here to just feel comfortable and have pleasure and just have all these nice emotions that are filling us every time. We're trying to we're here to be great in the eyes of God, and I'm all for it. It's in my estimation, like, this is something to put stake your life on, right? And to devote your life to. So I'm really proud to be here with you, with the rest of the team, to, you know, go after this and try and build this life economy to the best of our ability.
It's so exciting. We're just on the precipice of something, and it, it's one of those things where you know it's true because there's no one you've ever talked to that's gone down the Bitcoin rabbit hole that's spent more than just a cursory look at it and has actually implemented in their life, not just like, okay, I trust you, Brandon, I'll buy like 5%. And oh, wow, it's done really well. Thank you for your financial recommendation. But people that have actually spent the time to go further down, to study more, to learn about other things, to have Bitcoin sort of be the start of your learning path. No one's ever come back from that and been like, this is ridiculous. I've spent 1,000 hours studying this. You're all crazy. There's been some people in Bitcoin who have kind of gone off the deep end but they're still holding Bitcoin. They didn't go back to fiat. So it's one of those things, it's true because every single person that figures it out, it completely changes them, and it is their savings vehicle. It is grounding in their life. And I went through the same thing you did, that I basically just had to go, every single thing I've learned is a lie or a half truth. It's okay, yeah, World War II did happen. It did not happen the way it was told to us. The heroes of World War II may have been, like a nuanced human being that may have not been so perfect or so evil. But you know, we the fact that we were in bed with Russia and Joseph Stalin and like, oh yeah, that was just the cost of winning the war or whatever. Like, there's just so many things that are so nuanced and so beyond everything you've learned, thought, made true to yourself, and shedding that and admitting that you were told a lie, you believed a lie, and now it's time to start seeking the truth and finding out what's real is the hardest part of the journey. But everyone that does it, there's no coming back. And it is completely life changing, and it's going to do the same for you personally, you as a business owner, you as a business operator, or you as just an employee at a business. I'm going to be speaking at BTC Prague on a panel about speaking up at your companies that you're at. And listen, I did it. It was very uncomfortable. I didn't really get anywhere. I'm hoping that me leaving and going to do this will open some eyes, and maybe with some of the law changes and things, it'll be more comfortable. But there's absolutely no reason you can't talk about it. And you know what? I didn't get any buy-in necessarily from the folks in the C-suite, or I got some tangential buy-in, or oh, that sounds interesting. Maybe we should explore it without any desire to follow up. Quarterly earnings were the next most important thing, and your Bitcoin thing, whatever. But I can tell you for a fact that people around me started buying Bitcoin, read the Bitcoin standard, were like, hey, I'm going to do a weekly DCA of $50 a week, and would talk to me about it. Oh, hey, that's the Bitcoin guy. You can go talk to him. Or I remember specifically someone next to me had a question about using a blockchain to track cargo shipping. And I was just like, okay, how much time do you have? I'm going to sit you down, explain why that doesn't work. But you know what? The guy walked away from it and was like, that makes sense. I get it. This seems stupid. We don't want to do this deal. And so you'll have an effect on your company and the people around you, even if you're not getting people at the top of your organization to go all in on Bitcoin or to be the next Steak and Shake. There's so much more that can happen. And at the end of the day, Bitcoin is a grassroots movement, and there's no reason you shouldn't have grassroots effect within the companies you're at just by speaking up, or within your family just by speaking up, or with your group of friends. And once you know this, don't be obnoxious about it. Don't be insufferable about it, but make it known that, hey, I have this knowledge. I'm available for you. And you will find that you will change people's lives around you. And that's going to have a profound effect on you and your purpose, and how you feel, or why you feel that you are doing this and taking this journey as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, totally agreed. I'm with you 100%. And I guess like my final thing is like we're asking for courageous leaders to come join us, come talk to us.
yeah.
Like, because you don't have to do this alone. I think I felt like very isolated as I was going through 2022, 2023, really kind of learning on my own. But one of the beautiful parts about Sovereign is that we we don't want you to do it alone. We've been through kind of the fire of learning, the implications of Bitcoin and death economy, life economy. But we want to walk alongside you as you go through this path. So, you know, it just takes reaching out. It just takes, starting to learn, getting off zero, all these things that Bitcoiners preach. Um, but we promise you, we're going to be right there beside you. We're going to walk alongside you on this journey. And I think that's kind of what makes me super excited about Sovereign's long term here. And our mission is that we get to help people along this journey, and they don't have to kind of be out in the wilderness by themselves without a guide.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the one part of the show I'll do an actual product show for Sovereign here. That I was the same way. That going through this journey on my own was very lonely. Other than the online community, I had some friends who had some Bitcoin, but weren't, quote unquote Bitcoiners, and I wish they had been, because I kind of ended up in the Bitcoin world and doing that stuff. And it was hard to do it on my own. And I get the hesitations about bringing this up, or that you've done it, but it's like I don't have the time or the bandwidth to explain this to someone else. That's really the value we can add to people in the Bitcoin community, or people that already understand Bitcoin, is let us do all that heavy lifting for you. That is why we're here. I mean, that is the quote unquote product we are selling. We are offering to get business owners up to speed, via education and then via implementation into their business. And if you're hearing this and going, man, I have someone I really want to talk to about this, but I don't feel comfortable, or um, I just don't have the time. Please, that's an opportunity to just use us. Let us be a tool. Let the people who are dedicating their time, their full life to this, will be that resource. Will be the people to do the education, so you don't have to go on a journey like John and I did by themselves. That there will be someone there with them, and even many people don't feel comfortable doing this on their own, and that they're more introverted, or they just don't feel like they're completely grounded in their understanding of Bitcoin, or whatever the reason might be. But please, we have a referral program. And you can just sign up on the website, make a referral. We've had people come into the company this way already. And so please feel free to use us to help educate other people about Bitcoin, talk about Bitcoin, and even at your company, feel free to refer people just to our website. We have a free ebook on there you can download. I'm super proud of the ebook. A ton of time and effort went into this. There's a ton of great information in there, and just sending people to our website, take a look, and we're a bevy of resources and people that will help on this journey in any way, shape, or form, whatever time, level of understanding, anything else that can be that can be folded into this Bitcoin journey. Just please feel free to use us as a resource. So,
Great. I mean, maybe we can wrap there. I really appreciate this conversation, Brandon. Go into a little bit more of like the why, the philosophical, the ethical, the moral. Uh, this isn't just about, building an amazing business, which we intend to do, but I hope everyone could feel that fact that like there's something deeper here. There's something spiritual about this. And man, we couldn't be more excited to see where this journey takes us.
absolutely. And John, super excited to have you on board. Hope people enjoyed the conversation. I'm on Noster at Plebe Anon. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn, just my name, Brandon Karpelis. Um, and John, if you want to let people know where you are, this isn't just a shill to get more followers. Oh, I heard you on a podcast. I'm a follower. We want you guys to come reach out to us. Not only give us feedback, but talk to us, interact with us, see if there is a potential fit, or hey, how do you think I could get more involved? Like, just please reach out. We're more than happy to share our time and insight and develop networks and develop relationships as well. So, John, where can people find you?
Yeah, same handle everywhere on X, on LinkedIn, on Oscar at John Balkam. Find me, DM me, let's chat. You know, let's talk about the life economy, death economy, Bitcoin, whatever you want to talk about. But yeah, come find me, and I can't wait to talk with you.
Yeah, also we have the Sovereign accounts. Twitter and LinkedIn are probably our most prominently used platforms. Sovreign. Just come look for our official accounts there. Feel free to reach out for anything, please. We'll we're on Nostr the same way. I'm supposed to be in charge of running that profile. I've done a terrible job. I'm not good at social media. I really really given me a new appreciation for people who actually know what they're doing on social media, because I don't want to, and I find it exhausting. But if you do reach out on there and want to talk further about anything, we will get back to you if you prefer to do it on Nostr. But the other two platforms, like I said, X and LinkedIn also available. So, John, thank you so much for coming on the pod today, and I hope people enjoyed the discussion. And please feel free to reach out, as we said.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon.